Hello and welcome back to the Oh No 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 podcast. We're here for a preview of Saturday's trip to Firhill against a team that are unbeaten at home in Partick Thistle. I'm your host this evening, Robbie Weir, and delighted to be joined firstly by Blair Hopcroft. How are you getting on, Blair? Not long until your holidays.
I'm good, mate. Yeah, one more day to go. We were just talking about that before we came on. It'll be lots of hard work and textbooks tomorrow. Honest.
We're plugging the hype train for the winter holidays, and then of course we've got Alan Douglasman as well. How are you getting on, Alan?
I'm alright, mate. Yeah. Really, still pretty much buzzing for that game at the weekend. To be honest, still listening to the. I know folk will be laughing at us going on about it again, but listening to the Terrace podcast today, the Lower League special, just hearing them talking about it again, it was just great to relive it again. Loved it. So yeah, still buzzing about that, mate. And obviously, it's nearly Christmas, so.
Yeah, well, we'll stick with you then, Alan, and just what were your thoughts on the performance overall? How much did you... we don't want to delve too much into territory that's already been covered, but how much do you attribute that to Rovers playing very well compared to Ross County seemingly everyone's decided that they're just down tools to get Tony Docherty sacked?
Both, really. You have to... I mean, yeah, Ross County were ultimately pretty poor, and there's I've seen a lot of people talking who are normally quite sceptical about the whole idea of players chucking it, saying, you know what, they looked like they were chucking it, like they just didn't give a shit. But ultimately, without you're talking about going over old ground, and you've covered it in the post match. Would we have put a performance in anything close to that under Barry Robson? Absolutely not. So a big part of that has to come down to the way we are playing, and a huge amount of that has to go down to the way Dougie Imrie's setting them up, the way he's motivating them, the way he's getting more out of players who were maybe not at their best over the last few months. All the kind of stuff that we were told were his really good points when we announced we were hiring him. You know, there was a Morton fan on who did a podcast about it, and he was saying that these are the kind of things that he'll do. He'll make you hard to beat. He'll get the team organised. He'll start getting more out of players, and he gets teams to be greater than the sum of their parts. And for the Championship, our parts were actually pretty decent. They weren't shown it before that, but it's a huge amount of the credit has to go down to Rovers and the way we played. The whole wanted it more thing is normally a bit of a football cliche that you don't know how much you can put into it. But quite frankly, on Saturday, we did.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't get along to the game in person, but I did. It's like one of those rare occasions where you sit back, and fortunately we live in an era where you're not just, oh, that was a score and it's happened. It's been one where, because of Raith TV, more on them in a minute, where the full match highlights been available and the full replay been available, I actually went back and watched the full game, and it was just really clear and evident how the way that we were applying ourselves and how well it suited it was playing against County. And I thought that listening to the post-match podcast with yourself, Blair, Duncan, Scott, just really re-emphasised that point. Just to come back to Raith TV though, Blair, our eyes lit up. Davey Hancock sitting down, a wee bromance forming there with Dougie Imrie. He sat down for 45 minutes. And a pretty illuminating chat, I've got to say. I did not realise that Dougie Imrie had, for lack of a better phrase, an agricultural background. I didn't realise that for a start. If I'd been using the phrase Dougie Imrie in agriculture a few years ago, I think I would have probably been a lot less complimentary. But here we are. What did you make of the interview? Just give me your thoughts on it.
Oh, it's just another really, really good piece of output for Raith TV. I was actually speaking to Davey in the Macmillan Club a few weeks ago. It was actually after the Alloa game, after Imrie's first game, where he'd been in the club before the game, he'd been in the club after the game, and I was chatting to Davey, and I was like, I can always, like, I know Davey relatively well. I've known him for a few years, and I kind of feel like when he's doing an interview, I can get a feel for how he feels about the person he's interviewing, just with his line of questioning and his way of delivery and stuff. And I was like, "You really like him, eh?" He's like, "I do. I really like him." And he mentioned it then, actually, that Imrie was up for doing this kind of longer form interview, and they spoke about the longer form interviews he'd done with Sean Byrne and Dylan Easton and the likes. So again, it's just another example of him coming in and throwing himself into the job and throwing himself into the club and everything it means to be a part of the club. And it's really, really reassuring, actually, to see. And it was 45 minutes. I sat and watched the whole thing about a minute after it went live. And yeah, honestly, if you get a chance, I know that for some folk that longer form interview is maybe not everybody's cup of tea. Worth a listen, even if it's the podcast version. I know that Raith TV are putting up the podcast version either tonight or tomorrow morning or whatever.
I think it's already there.
Yeah.
Is it? Like, it is worth a listen. He speaks really well. He's really candid. Talks about his past and as Robbie alluded to, growing up on a farm and kind of all the things that you would never really have known about him. And he's really open about the sort of tragedy that him and his partner went through this year. Talks openly about the kind of the voice. Well, not quite openly about the voice note, but it's discussed. You know, that kind of the press and the stuff that came out after he came to Raith, and it's just, again, tick tick tick, everything you want to hear as a Rovers fan. It was a thoroughly enjoyable 45 minutes. So hats off to Davey and the guys at Raith TV. Another home run.
Yeah, I fully agree. I felt that Dougie Imrie came across, as he's done already, he's came across tremendously well in sort of any bits of media that he's already done. And it's just really illuminating when he was talking about sort of his background in terms of playing sort of through the lower tiers of the pyramid. Wouldn't have been as such the pyramid at that point, but the pressure that he felt when he was playing for Clyde coming through and sort of going on to the highs in his career and sort of developing the respect that he's been able to garner. Also as well, just about his coaching career in terms of spending his time being able to get the pro licence and continuing to develop himself, continuing to sort of evolve as a manager, which is fantastic to see.
He's really open though about just about his philosophy. Like he's openly said, like, man management, that's the key. It's the key to everything. Do you know what I mean? And not just man management with the players, but man management with the fans and the sponsors. He even talks about, you know, like the time he wants to put in with the sponsors and the owners and everybody in between. It's really, really positive.
That comes across so in everything he does. The way he is, like, before and after games, you know, you see him speaking to people, he's spending time with them. You know, the young players when they're coming off, you see him kind of really spending time with them. And even with the pre and the post match interviews, it comes across. And he comes on a post match interview and he tells you what he's thinking. Like, you know, he came out and said why he set the team up the way he did against Ross County, and it all made perfect sense. And it just. Yeah. It's so reassuring to have a guy in charge who you think, you know what, this guy knows what he's doing. It's just a really, really reassuring thing.
Yeah, don't want to go too much into spoilers for you, Alan, because I know that you're still to listen to it, but there was...
just downloaded the podcast version now.
That's fair. Give that a listen to before us. But yeah, I felt that... one of the really illuminating bits, I mean, it's kind of something that I think as a fan that you should know already, but again, I guess everyone's guilty of it because football's about opinions, and he's sort of really hammering home, like, look, there can be times where players are having a difficult spell on the pitch, but fans have got to remember they're human beings, and they might have other stuff away from the game that we don't know about that's been difficult for them. And And again, just really hammering that home, that point. And again, everyone knows in terms of the tragedy that's happened with him and his partner earlier on in the year, and sort of the unified sort of voice that Scottish football's backed with him. He speaks about that very, very candidly. So I would encourage, even if you're not a Rovers fan, even if you're sort of tuning in, and I know that we get fans from other clubs or even seemingly board members from other clubs tuning in, apparently. I would encourage you to go off and listen to it, because he just comes across so well, and just a real good insight into sort of a man who's put in the work and continuing to sort of, as I said earlier on, evolve. So we'll take a look now, just to move on. Saturday, it's a trip. Yeah, probably one of the most familiar places that we've covered the podcast as a game in terms of Firhill. Feels like we're never away from the place, as well as Somerset Park there. The Jags, have they surprised you, given how well they've adapted under Mark Wilson? Still going strong at the top of the table, Alan?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you'll find many who kind of thought they were going to do anywhere near this well at the start of the season, especially when Mark Wilson came in. Everyone's thinking, oh God, they've gone for the cheap option, because they can't, they weren't overly busy in the transfer window. They brought a few in, and you're looking at it thinking, they don't necessarily look as strong as they have done over the last few years. There's question marks over the manager. They went out first game of the season and got pumped by St Johnstone. At that point, you didn't know, was it St Johnstone being really good, Thistle being shite, or a bit of both? Turns out it was probably a bit of both, just on that one occasion. But fair play to them. I think they've only lost, now 2 games. They lost, obviously, to Arbroath last week. But other than that, their game at Starks was the only other game they've lost this season, I think. So they've gone on a hell of a run, and they've got themselves kind of fairly well clear in second place now. Picked up some really good wins, and they score a decent amount of goals. They don't concede an awful lot of goals, and that's a pretty damn good combination as a football team, to be honest. Like, you're going to do well in this league if you're in that scenario. And they've got different types of threats. So you've got like the Logan Chalmers, who can kind of cause all sorts of issues, unfortunately, normally against us. But then you've got guys like Tony Watt as well, who seems to actually be doing really well for them. Which is a funny one, Tony Watt, because you always thought if he applies himself, he's a ridiculously good striker at this level. But there's always that question mark over whether he's going to apply himself, and he seems to be thriving. Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming he knows Mark Wilson from when they were both at Celtic, so maybe that helps. But I didn't expect Thistle to be where they are, and fair play to them. They've done well.
Yeah, definitely. Blair Thistle, best home form in the league, quite comfortably actually. It's 7 wins and 2 draws out of the 9 games that they've played at Firhill. And since the last meeting between ourselves and them, they've only actually had the 1 loss, which came last week, I believe. But do you think that's a good challenge for Dougie Imrie's new Raith Rovers that are revitalised to go off and have that, to be able to go to Firhill and play such a difficult task, a team that have done so well in the league, an opportunity to maybe show their sort of mettle and show what they're capable of?
Yeah, I think it is. It's I mean, for listening to everything that Dougie Imrie says when he's doing his interviews and stuff, this will be a game he'll relish as much as going up to McDiarmid Park was. I think he's one of those managers that I think he enjoys the challenge, he enjoys the battle. I mean, we played them already at Firhill, and barring a rare Dylan Easton giving a goal away, we were right in that game after a pretty poor first half. To turn it around, and we showed a fair bit of kind of fight and a bit of drive to kind of to keep pushing and to keep going and get back into that game. So I don't think we need to go into it with anything to fear. I think we obviously have hit a wee turn of form, which is important as well. The kind of clean sheets and the defensive record has been particularly good for the last few weeks, and then obviously in the last sort of 10 or 11 days we've finally figured out how to score a goal, which is always positive as well. So yeah, I think it's a game you'll be looking forward to. I was having a wee look back. It's funny that it's something I've never really paid attention to. You never kind of look out for how other teams do against teams, but I was having a wee look to see how Morton did against them. And again, it was a draw. I mean, it was at Capello, to be fair. It wasn't at Firhill.
They drew it at Firhill as well.
Oh, did they? Have they played twice?
Both games have been won. Yeah, both games have been 1-1. Yeah,
both games are 1-0. There you go. So it's a really interesting one in terms of how we kind of line up for this game. But you can't help but be impressed with Partick so far this season.
Yeah.
In terms of, I think Alan hit the nail on the head. I don't think anybody in the summer thought this was coming. I don't even think many Partick fans, if they're really honest, thought this was coming. There was a fair bit of kind of downness about the appointment of the manager when he got kind of announced. That it wasn't, they weren't singing his name for the rafters. So I think they've been pleasantly surprised. But I think he deserves a lot of credit. He's, as Alan said, they haven't been awfully busy. I think he signed really well. He signed exactly what he needed, where he needed it. And I think they've been relatively okay kind of injury-wise. They've managed to kind of carry. I think they've had a few, certainly defensively, they had a few for a while. But I think it's kind of eased itself off a little bit now for them. So I'll be honest, I think it's a game that even as a neutral I would be looking forward to. I think it always is a bit of a battle between these two sides. So I'm really looking forward to it. Firhill for thrills, as they say. I'm looking forward to Saturday.
Yeah, there's absolutely been some memorable games there recently. I know Partick came out on top in the last one, but it did seem to be a match that was really well received, and Rovers had quite a, I don't know, we've been successful up to that point. It was the end of our unbeaten run, which again Thistle seemed to be pretty good at doing that, because they did that, I think it was a good few years ago now, but 4 years ago, the game in the fog, that Christoph Berra got sent off in.
4 years ago today, and I've seen it. It's been shared on Twitter a fair bit today. I've noticed with Partick fans, Thistle fans.
That's fair. But just Alan, for Thistle in the league, in terms of the timings that they're actually scoring, it seems that they do have quite strong starts and quite strong finishes. I think it's about roughly just under 60% of the goals that either scored in the first 15 minutes or last 15 minutes of games. Do you think that's something that we need to be quite wary of, strong starts and strong ends to games? Are you confident, given what we've seen recently from Rovers, that we can approach it a bit differently? And
before Imrie came in, I would have said it was more of a thing. What I would say is, if we score early on, I'm always confident we're going to see the game out, and that was even the case, earlier in the season under Robson. Back then, if we conceded early, you thought that we had kind of no chance coming back into it. Now I'd be a bit more confident in us coming back at them if they score. I mean, you've only got to look at, I suppose, the last trip to Firhill, haven't you? We came back into it, albeit that was under Robson. But I think, yes, they will score goals, but I think the way we play, we'll always get chances against them, especially now that we're actually creating them again. It's even towards the end of games, you just feel a lot more confident in our ability to see it out. So if we are, sitting there on a draw and thinking we'll take that, or if we've got a narrow lead, you just feel a lot more confident that we can actually say, right, we're happy with what we've got. Let's just kind of keep the game out now and take a chance if we get it. We've got, we're getting some players coming back now as well. With Richard Chin back in the squad last week, so we're finding ourselves with options off the bench to kind of change things if we need to as well. So I don't, unless they go into particularly big lead, I don't think we'll ever be out of it. Really.
And I think already the previous game at Firhill, we were dead and buried at 2-0, and then we come right back into it. And that game, it appeared, based on what I saw, to be one that could have gone either way. I mean, you think of the chances, some of the chances that we missed, the Jack Hamilton one in particular. So I know that gets sort of fabled a wee bit higher, but there's opportunities to be got at them there, and I'm relatively confident that going into Saturday that we can kick on and continue on this sort of form. Alan's mentioned Blair. Tony Watt came up earlier on, but across the team, a real mix of goal scorers there for Thistle. So you've got Logan Chalmers on 7, Tony Watt on 7 as well, Alex Samuel on the 5, and Ben Stanley on the 4. Does that really illustrate how they've not really lost Brian Graham as such, because they seem to have discovered that they could just actually score goals across their team?
Yeah. It's amazing what happens when you don't have to all give the ball to the same guy for 90 minutes, because he's the coach and the manager and the tea lady and the kit man and everything in between, and the referee. No, it's as I said earlier, that they've signed. He signed really well. He has. Tony Watt, there was a lot of folk kind of almost writing him off and stuff. I think he's a relatively tricky character. He's got a kind of a track record of not lasting a long time wherever he goes. I think he has an instant impact, and he can be quite good. But I think he has the kind of personality that can make it challenging to kind of put down roots. I think it's fair to say he's quite a kind of up and down kind of character from what we read. But he's a goal scorer. I mean, you're saying there's 7 already. Like, I don't think we've got anybody on 7, have we? We've not got a single one.
Dylan Easton, maybe?
Oh, Easton, maybe, yeah. But I mean, to have 2 of them, Alex Samuel at 5, like, no idea where that's come from. Because he's definitely no scored against us, and we seem to be the only one he could score against before. But they've got, like, I have to say, they've got some real quality in that squad in the right places, and they've got some pretty seasoned championship players around them. There's no kind of real weak link, as much as there's no Brian Graham, that one talisman that's going to do everything for you. A bit like what Dylan Easton probably has been for us, actually, this season in particular. They don't have that, and that kind of spreading it across the team. It's their season so far for me is really reminiscent of the year we played Dundee United that couple of seasons ago. It feels a kind of a similar feel. It's just building up a bit of momentum, building up a head of steam, taking the opportunities when they come. But they've got probably 2 of the best wingers in the league. They've got 2 of the most steady Eddie centre halves in the league. You know, you can't argue with them. They've got a good young central midfielder like Soso. Seems to be really good. Anyway, that every time I've seen him, he's kind of doing decent. Stanway has really come into a game this season. And then even like McPherson that they picked up for Queen's Park, or not for Queen's Park, sorry, for Celtic, isn't it? It's on loan. He was at Queen's Park last season. I think we've all mentioned him in the past as a player who's got a bit of talent and stuff. So they've definitely got the right players in the right positions. But as the couple of weeks has shown, or certainly last week against Arbroath, I mean, they were 2-0 down and looked to be out of it. Got a goal back, and then Arbroath down to 10 men, and they still didn't manage to claw their way back in. So they can be got at. And as you mentioned, we very nearly did it at Firhill ourselves. We beat them already at Starks. And Barron, I mean, that was the game that Lewis Vaughan kind of went down for that penalty when he was kind of probably better to go around the goalie, and Jack Hamilton missed a bit of a sitter. You know, there was chances there. So yeah, positives, but definitely not an easy task. That said, though, I will just last thing. If there's one manager in this league that I think is going to have a plan, I'm all aboard the Dougie train.
The Dougie bus is
the Dougie bus.
Called it. Aye. It's hopefully going to be cruising along there nicely. But to go back to your point, I like a lot of how Thistle have adapted to sort of the recent challenges that we've had. I know that we've slaughtered them quite a lot about like tranches getting put into their club from Semiconductor.
750,000 kits a season.
But that as well. But at the same time, like I think back in October they signed a contract extension for Dan O'Reilly, who you would have thought would have been looking to probably move up the pyramid if they're not taking action at that point.
Yeah.
I think that they've got a lot of groundwork in place there. And to mention Mark Wilson and the job that he's done, I'm keen to see if they sort of can look back at how we approached that season, and if say they're coming into Christmas and obviously New Year, and they're sort of going top of the league, they're going a few points clear. St Johnstone's starting to get a bit of pressure because obviously they've put in, you would guess, a fair bit more money than Thistle in terms of their recent business. It does make you wonder if they're going to be a bit more aggressive about things compared to how we maybe were towards the tail end of that season, because we kind of got a bit more reserved as the season went on. We were quite happy just to take our wins while we could get them. And to be fair, we still had a good second half of the season, but it felt like we were going more for efficiency rather than sort of trying to sort of dominate. So that'll be one to watch. I know it was a while ago, Alan, but do you think there's any lessons that we can take from the last two games going into it? And we've obviously changed our manager since then, but is there anything that maybe more on the Thistle side that you look at them and you see sort of any areas where you feel that they could be got at?
I suppose the one thing is when we haven't been playing brilliantly, up until fairly recently, we've been struggling to score goals, but we've put 4 past them. Without being at the top of our game, we've put 4 past them, so we know they can be got at. You can't not be confident after scoring 11 goals in 2 games. Like it's not possible to not have a bundle of confidence going into the game. So that there's two sides. There's obviously we've played them twice, and so we know how we can get at them. We know we've got players in our team who know how to get at them, but also, as we kind of mentioned, Dougie Imrie's played them twice as Morton manager and managed to set up a team to not to lose to them twice. So you add the two things together, there's no reason for the team not to be really confident to go in there and get a result. And over the last few years we've done pretty well against Thistle, so there's no reason for the team not to be full of belief that they can go there and get something.
Yeah, I think as well with the last 2 league games, I know that we're on the road, but they drew 0-0 down at Somerset Park against Ayr United, which, I mean, initially last Friday, that looked like a really good result until Ayr United absolutely collapsed in the second half against St Johnstone. But the loss against Arbroath, again, that seemed to be a game of 2 halves. And I think everyone's kind of acknowledged that sort of when the first half they weren't really as much at it, and then the second half I think they came right back into it.
Worth noting that Arbroath have got a really decent home record as well. I mean, looking at the home table, they're sitting third just behind Thistle and St Johnstone, so they have got a very good record up at Gayfield, as they normally do, to be fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, so let's take a look at the Rovers' perspective and the Rovers' side on things. And to be honest, we've probably got a fair bit to talk about after last weekend. You guys, Blair mentioned it, sort of alluded to it. It would probably be a conversation more for the pre-match podcast, but the box formation seemed to have attracted a lot of attention from Dougie Imrie. Do you think that was just horses for courses, and we will need to be adapting because it seemed to work very, very well against Ross County? Is it one where it might be that we're adapting simply given who we're playing this weekend to what we'd maybe more expect from Dougie Imrie?
See, this, I've been thinking about this a lot today. I don't know, is the honest truth. And I think that's the best bit. If there's any Partick fans, and I still think it's weird to listen to another Dean podcast, so you're a weirdo. But if you are listening and you're tuning in for some kind of insight into what we think's going to happen, I've got to be honest, we've not got a Scooby, because he's changed things dramatically in the last sort of 2 games in particular, to kind of suit the opposition, and he's built his team in a way that can get at them. But I did mention in the post match, I'm not sure it works against Thistle. I think it works against County because they lack width, and it's one thing that Partick definitely don't lack is width. They've got decent fullbacks, probably better than decent actually, if we're being fair. And they've got, as I already alluded to, probably two of the best wingers in the league. And I think that's where you can get at them. If you can stop the width, if you can counter that, that's probably where you get joy against them. You have to you almost have to cancel that threat initially. And as Alan said, we were decent at doing that under the previous manager when we apparently weren't very decent at doing very much else. So yeah, I don't think the box midfield works for this one. I think changing it up, probably back to the 4-2-3-1, makes a bit more sense. The difficult thing he's got is that they were so good and the performances were so good. I'm not sure the team he picked fits a 4-2-3-1. So he's got some really difficult decisions to make. And I think this is probably as big a test for him early on of his man management skills as anything could be. Because, I mean, the criticism we had of Barry Robson was that he wouldn't change things. The criticism we had of Neil Collins was he kept changing things and wouldn't stop changing them. He found something that worked for 20 minutes and then that was him for the next game and then he changed it again. But I think he has to. I think it is horses for courses. I think he's got to pick a team that can play against that. And I mean, I know we'll talk probably a bit more in depth about team lineups and stuff, but I mean, as good as J-Ro was, does J-Ro start against Thistle with the width? And, you know, the only question mark we have over him is this kind of defensive side. And it feels really dirty saying that because he was awesome last week. He scored an absolute screamer. I'm not sure I would start him. And like I say, that's a real test of your management skills after a game like that.
Yeah, Alan, big thoughts there in terms of not just J-Ro, but also Paul Niso, Scott Brown, all scored at the weekend. Really, the first sort of team dilemma selection choice that Dougie Imrie's had. A bit of a headache there, potentially.
It is, but you know what? It's one of those, it's a really good headache to have because, to have the headache of how do I fit guys into the team because they're all playing well. There's more than 11 guys playing well. Whereas before it was like, who the hell do we put in this team to try and sort this shit out? You look at it and think, J-Ro's had 2 really decent games. He scored 4 goals in the last 2 games. But to go reverse Roy Keane, that's not his job. His job's to defend. And I'm not saying he's not a good defender. And you know what? The confidence he's going to have got for these last 2 games.
Totally.
He obviously has something about him as a defender as well. I've no doubt about it. We've not necessarily seen it yet, but we hadn't seen a lot of the other things that we were expecting from him until the last couple of games, so maybe he's got them there. And the other thing with that is if you take him out, you're putting Jordan Doherty back there. That's the other thing. And he was so good in the base of that midfield that I'd really quite like to see him there again, because what he does is he gives you that option of kind of drifting over to the right and kind of helping J-Ro out in a defensive sense. And he's just so good going forward with the ball as well. Like, he's just such a really, really good player. Unless you're a scout from another team watching, in which case he's pish. Didn't even bother watching him. But to be fair,
who do you drop though, Alan?
I don't know.
Because if you put Doherty in the midfield, you've either got to drop Matthews or Brown,
or you've got to put
play
Brown
one
back
of them
at
at
10
again. Like,
even Paul Niso.
I mean, Paul Niso obviously came off the bench, so you wonder if he's also a young lad, so he's probably the more likely to sit out. But with Jordan Doherty playing in centre mid, he's now got 4 centre mids that basically played in that game, and potentially only needs 2.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not the one that's having to make a decision. Put it that way.
Totally.
Because I'm finding it hard enough to think what I would do when it really doesn't matter, because it's not what's going to happen. So when you're actually having to put those names down on that sheet and actually decide what you're doing, I'm glad it's not my call.
I think the good thing is, though, that with Dougie Imrie, that he's made a lot in the interviews that he's done. He has spoken quite a lot about how he knows the league and he knows the players in the league, and it's about getting to know the personalities within the Rovers squad. But also that applies to that he can go to Firhill, and he's played a dozen or so games, probably more than that against them over the last few years, and that he can reflect that in how he's going to line up a squad. So that makes for 2:00 a lot more intriguing to see the social media and what comes out in the tweet for the announcing the lineup, compared to maybe with our previous manager, shall we say? Because I know it's the dumb thing to do for us to be kicking the manager that's just at the door. A direct quote from Dougie Imrie, Blair in the Courier, who was just saying he thinks it's just confidence. Having been a player himself, you go through dips, and hopefully the more goals we can get, the confidence can come back. If you don't shoot, you don't score. That's the motto. We need to be more ruthless and no passing the buck. Is that music to your ears in terms of where we're at and hopefully how we're going to be progressing as a club?
Print it above the door and make them tap it on their way out. It's so true though, and the thing is, it's really easy. And if I'm being really honest, if that was Dougie Imrie, the Morton manager, making that quote, I'd be calling it birthday card pish, and I'd be saying, yeah, you've got to shoot. If you do shoot, you do score. There's an insight for you. But it's amazing what perspective does, because I'm all aboard. I'm in. Yeah, it's exactly what we need to do, and it's instilling that. It's instilling that into the players. I don't think so much passing the buck has been an issue. I genuinely don't. I do think we've been a bit shot shy. I don't think it is so much about passing the buck as just maybe not having the confidence to kind of go for it yourself. And probably overpassing and looking for that perfect angle and all the rest of it. I just think we're as Alan says, you can't score the goals we've scored in the last 2 games and not come out confident. And I think I always like this team, this squad, when they've got spring in their step and when they've got that bit of kind of swagger about them. Because we all know how good they can be, but we also know how poor they can be. And it is a confidence thing, and it's massive. I'm really hoping, like Sir Jack Hamilton, takes a lot for that game. He was so good last weekend, so good. Not just at doing all the stuff that he does that folk didn't give him the credit for because it's his job to score goals and all the rest of it, but he chipped in and he got that goal. Do you know what I mean? And he was important in the build up to the first one. He was just a presence the whole day. McMullen was awesome as well, just really, really good, really busy. So there's loads of positives. And actually, like we said already, picking a starting 11 is going to be particularly tricky, but for the right reasons. And that's not been the case for a good while. There's always been one or two that are playing out of position or need to come out or whatever. And maybe he'll have to make a change or two just because of a change of shape. But like I say, it's as Alan said, it's a really nice headache to have.
Absolutely. You've got guys like Miso and Mullen, who were 2 of our better players over the last few weeks, warming the bench now.
Totally.
Great. And then you've got Chin sitting on the bench with them. You've got Ewan Wilson, who's come in and had decent games. He's sat on the bench as well. It's a really, really good position to be in. The one concern I did have with Hamilton at the weekend actually had nothing to do with his performance. It was more to do with his goal celebration when he nearly lost his foot. And I'm like, you watch that bloody ankle, son.
I know.
Well, we want to see. I think that we're certainly been among the critical side of it. I mean, you see it on social media in particular. I don't, again, looking at commentary from sort of ex-players, I know that in terms of pundits, they sort of often ask the question about, like, maybe if they were playing in the early 2000s, they're a bit like, no chance I would be using social media, but it's part of a lot of people's lives. And just to be able to have that where now people are starting to be like, okay, that was so much better, that's an improvement. So I think the players have got to take a lot from that. I think they've got to sort of chest out, heads up sort of stuff. Cliche to say, but I mean, do you think, Alan, the manner of last week's win gives them that bit of breathing room to sort of feel like, okay, we've done that last week, we can go into the next game against Thistle with a higher degree of confidence, just knowing that we've been able to sort of get the monkey off our backs and being able to kick on? Because, I mean, even last, I sort of pointed it out, can't remember if it was elsewhere online, but sort of saying that we went from joint bottom goal scorers up to sixth in the league for goals scored just by that one game alone.
There's so much they can take from that. Just the confidence of winning a game, the confidence of winning a game convincingly. You've gone out and pumped a team 6-0 who brought 2 former Scotland internationals off the bench and who didn't look anywhere near as good as anyone in the Rovers topped it. Apart from Gary Mackay-Stevens, we nutmeg rated in somebody, and that was quite funny. But we didn't see that for the South Stand, but it was right in front of me, so I saw it. But aye, they take a lot from that. But scoring 6 goals is great, but we scored different types of goals. You know, we scored an absolute screamer for Jero, but then you've got the Scott Brown's goal and Niso's goal and even Hamilton's goal, where it was just being quicker than the defence, wanting it a bit more, really fighting for it, and just showing that if you put that bit of effort in and you trust your centre forward to get the knockdown, you just say, right, I'm going to commit to being there, and if the ball comes there, I'm putting it in the net. But then you've also got the 4th goal, which was just some really nice football. Again, with Jack Hamilton involved, the wee kind of ball around the corner to McMullen was great. And
pouncing on a mistake.
Aye, the players we've got in the team, when you've got guys like Easton and McMullen, those are the kind of goals you want, you expect to score. So we're doing the things we expect to do, and you've got to take huge amounts of confidence from that. You just have to.
Well, we go into Saturday, Blair. Fine fettle, I guess, under Dougie Imrie, given his record at the moment as Rovers manager. If we are to be successful, is there any area that you think is going to be key out of this game, just with the way that Thistle are playing as well? Is there anything that stands out for you?
Yeah, as I was saying already, I think you if you stop the width with them, if you stop the wide men, you give yourself a fighting chance. And that's not to say that all their threat is out wide. As I've already said, Latsosa and Stanway through the middle definitely carry threat. But there's no coincidence for me that they've got 2 strikers with 12 goals between them in that team, because the balls get delivered. You know, they get deliveries, they get fed effectively, and so I think that's got to be the priority. And it's a funny thing, I think, as a football fan. It's one of those things that I've always you do have to worry about your opposition, but you've also got to impose yourself on them. You know, they're at home, so the onus is on them to kind of run the game effectively, you would think. But I'd like to see us kind of carrying enough threat that actually they've got to think about what they're doing, and they've got to kind of adjust accordingly. They're not going to relish the fact they're coming up against a team that scored 11 goals in a week. I don't think anybody would. So, and the fact that the goals are, again, spread all the way throughout the team in a similar fashion to what they are. We are at a stage now, again, where you've got to look at it and say we carry threat. And as Alan's already touched on, you've got Richard Chin available again, coming off the bench potentially, to kind of be a bit of a thorn in the side for them as well. We know they can be got at. You've just got to kind of play the game and kind of, I suppose, just like I say, nullify the threat that they carry whilst also trying to kind of impose yourself on the game. And we've definitely got the players to do that. Still, well, I mean, we won 6-0 on Saturday, and we won 5-2 the Tuesday before, but we just haven't scored goals.
Yeah.
Other than that week aside, you know, we haven't scored a lot of goals. So I don't think it's a given. I don't think it's easy. There's certainly a big asterisk against Hamilton game, and a bit of an asterisk against the Ross County game as well, in fairness. You've got to take the plaudits, but you also have to. I mean, Dougie Imrie says that in that interview with Davey about he never gets too high and he never gets too low. And I think it is very much job done, move on to the next one. So, yeah, like I say, I'm honest, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, I mean, with the game itself, it's very hard to see it other than being anything other than a tight affair. I think that, it could be one team blows the other away, but very rarely has that been the case in a Rovers Thistle game over the last few years. That works both ways. You look at the games that Thistle have won. They won at Firhill, and then they beat us in the playoffs at Starks. And the playoff at Starks, they were excellent. Right up until the final minute when Brian Graham blazed the ball over the bar and what looked like a relatively straightforward chance by his standards. But what for me, it would be very pleasing to see us go out and get a win on the road, and even if it's just one where we can get a goal or two and then we just use the strength that we've got in our defence to be able to shut up shop. I'm sure anyone would take that. But I mean, I don't think anyone's under any illusions. This isn't playing, as you say, a Ross County team that appear to have chucked it, or a Aki's team full of kids, effectively. Everyone knows how difficult this is going to be as an away day, but at the same time, they're not infallible. I know that it's not lost at home this season yet, but Rovers have always been the kind of team that can relish that sort of challenge. Certainly over the last few years, I've felt more confident going up against teams where they've been on a good vein of form, rather than they've been in a poor reign of form, and then, like for instance, the Queen's Park away or the Ross County away, where you go, we're going to be the ones, aren't we? And again, already Dougie Imrie's kind of changed that last week when we blew Ross County away, because again they'd not been successful on the road.
One of the things you have to take from it, I suppose, is looking at the oppositions. I think there's only 5 league games this season where we've scored more than one goal in it, and 2 of them have been against Thistle. And it's been against Thistle kind of well. They've been in their good run as well. It's not like they've maybe struggled a wee bit the last couple of weeks. So if we can get at them and score 2 goals when we are not at our best, you've got to imagine we've got more of a chance of getting at them now. But I suppose they'll see us as more of a threat now, so they might change the way they play against us now, because we actually, it's weird to be saying this season, we actually are a real threat on the attack.
Absolutely. So if we go to lineups then, who's one to go first?
I've written one down.
Go for it then, Blair.
It's my surprise actually. Ray in goals, obviously. I'm going with Rowe. So Rowe and O'Connor, Hanlon and Stevenson as a back 4. Mainly because, I'll be honest with you, I was on the fence until Allan started talking, and putting Doherty in the midfield is there as a support as well, actually, to kind of go over and kind of add that little bit on the right hand side. So Doherty and Brown at the base of the 2. I'd bring Mullen back in, because it's me and it's Mullen and he's handsome, on the right, Easton on the left, and I'd keep Paul McMullen in the sort of 10 off of Hamilton, just running about and being a nuisance and being everywhere. I think that's and I think the beauty of having those 3 is they're all comfortable playing in each other's roles. So you've got that kind of flexibility that they can move about and stuff. But yeah, I think that's where I would go.
And for you, Alan, what are your thoughts going into this one? Have you got a lineup down, or?
I'm not getting them written down, and I maybe wouldn't have picked it myself, but I kind of struggled to pick any faults with what Blair's gone with there, to be honest. Harsh on Ross Matthews to drop out after.
Yeah.
I mean, Ross Matthews wasn't really spoken about much after the county game, but not because he had a bad game. It's just because he didn't do anything spectacular, but he did everything he was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels a little bit harsh, but I just think under Imrie, Brown has kind of got back to himself a little bit. He's
Yeah.
looking like the kind of player that, you know, a year or two ago, you really noticed when Scott Brown wasn't in that midfield and we missed him. And he's kind of getting back to that level again. So I'd have absolutely no issue at all if Dougie Imrie was to set the team up exactly the way players just said.
I think we could probably.
And that's not a cop out, honestly.
We could go more recent than that, Alan, and I think we could probably say about a month ago. In all honesty, with Scott Brown. Blair, I mean, the first 7 names that you rattled out there are exactly the same as mine. I'd just jotted mine down, but I wasn't sure if we would maybe even bring Richard Chinham from the start, because that's a potential option there as well. If we want to rotate it and have that sort of threat there, whether Dougie Imrie would feel that that's the occasion for it, but sometimes you need that sort of maverick threat to be able to sort of say, great to see him get back on the park last Saturday, and it was a shame that he didn't get his goal, because that would have just picked him right up from where he left off in terms of previously before, after scoring in that Arbroath game. Ironically, another game that I missed because I was away in Turkey on holiday, so maybe it's just me, maybe I just need to stop going to home games, so just get banned at Starks Park, John Greer huckling me out every single week. And of course, I think the point that I would make is that guys like Jack Hamilton and Paul McMullen, to the same degree as Jay Rowe and Scott Brown, it's great to see them playing with a lot more confidence and a lot more self-belief. It's something that we all want to see. I think that any criticism that we have had before has always been born out of we want to see better because we know that you can do better.
Yeah,
it's not always easy from either side of the point, but to go back to that Dougie Imrie, I think it's very important to remember that these guys, they've got lives away from football, and there is that aspect that there might be stuff going on that we don't know about, and they just needed that person to come in, arm around the shoulder and say, like, look, we're going to stick with you, just keep your head up and go on again.
Yeah.
Football,
it'd be interesting to see that actually in terms of Chin, but the one thing I would say on Richard Chin is there was a real danger that the longer he was out injured, the better he got. You know, because yes, he looked quite impressive. When we first saw him, you could see there's absolutely, raw attributes there for this guy to be an absolute cult hero at Rovers. But the good kind of cult hero, not one of the cult heroes because he's a bit shite, but the proper, like, this guy's really good, we're going to have him for 6 months and then lose him because he's that good. And then he was starting to show that he was going to be able to turn that into reality a little bit. But there was that little worry that, the longer he was out, it's like, is he actually as good as we remember him being? Is it going to take him a while to get back up to speed? My God, he hit the ground running when he came on. He did. He just looked so dangerous. Like it actually looked like the Dundee United. Get mixed up because Declan Gallagher was in there, I suppose. But the county defence almost looked terrified every time he picked up the ball and started running at them because he's got so much pace. He's so direct. It's great.
I was convinced that shot was in.
He's saving
all
it.
The way.
He's saving it. He's scoring a hat-trick against the Pars on the 27th.
Perfect. I will accept that.
I'll take that. Speaking of Dundee United, good to see Ross Milne getting on the score sheet for Cali last night against Dumbarton Kids, is it? So it's in that rather convincing, shall we say, win. Not as convincing as Queen of the South against Dunfermline, though, according to the Rovers. That's a good laugh.
Comfortable. I think comfortable.
Yeah, comfortable. And also as well, Dundee United, it was good to see them beating Celtic and definitely not celebrating winning the league and definitely not going too far with their social media because their fans would not like that, would they, lads? But
I don't know if you saw Ian Latto actually raised the point on Twitter that, the amount of United fans who actually still go on about, whenever Rovers get beat, where's the cartoons? But they were all loving their Twitter admin having a wee dig at Celtic last night.
Unprofessional. Unprofessional.
Football fans and being hypocrites, shocker.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be us. I mean, not like we've slaughtered our current manager. But anyway, moving on from that. I've got a Should McStay or Should Dargo for you guys.
Oh, fun.
Exactly. 6 questions about a current or former Rovers player. So I will just note down. Right. Clue number 1. Starting you off nicely, Blair. Grant Murray signing.
Oh, nice. Grant Murray. Oh.
I think I'm in the right era. Kevin Moon.
That's exactly where I was going. That's exactly where I was going. All right, I'll go Liam Fox then.
To be fair, I was going between the two of them.
Yeah.
Clue number 2. 32 games and 2 goals for the Rovers.
Could be Moon or Fox.
Yeah, I think I'll stick with where I am.
I think I will too. What's that? 32 games, 2 goals?
That's the one.
Yeah, I think I'll stick.
Clue number 3. The logos of my last 5 clubs include the following animals: a bull's head, a rooster, a gorilla, a star, and a lion. I know a star's not an animal, but affect myself there. I'm in charge of the editing, so it's
So
all right.
a bull, a rooster, a gorilla, a star, and a lion.
Yes.
Jesus. That's got to be abroad then, because there's no gorillas over here.
It's funny enough, I was thinking that and I went, John Baird? No, he scored more than 2 goals.
Yeah. Gorilla.
So just to recap, Grant Murray era, 32 games, 2 goals, and the logos of the last 5 clubs they played for included a bull's head, a rooster, a gorilla, a lion, and there was also a star chucked in there for good measure.
Is that in order?
So the bull's head was the most recent, then the
Right.
rooster, then the gorilla.
So it's
star,
working
lion.
backwards.
Yeah, so it's working backwards.
So the lion could be us.
Yeah, that would make sense. Star. There's not a lot of stars.
Glad we've not got any astronomers on the podcast because they might disagree with me on that one. But
How do you know him? Yeah, I've got nothing to no reason to change because I have no idea.
I'm trying to think of anybody who played and has gone abroad, because there's definitely... I don't even think there's a gorilla in England. I can't think of a club badge in the UK with a gorilla in it. That seems really niche. So I'm going to go... I think he's maybe been done already, but I'm going to go David Bates. Just because he's gone abroad.
There's somebody I'm thinking of and I just can't admit it. I think era for him, if it works out about right.
you want another clue?
I'm sure we've done him before. Callum Elliott? Does he work?
Callum Elliott.
Oh, yeah.
Ah.
He played in Lithuania, didn't he?
Clue 4. The country I was born in no longer exists.
Right, it's definitely no David Bates then.
No, because he was born
The
in
country
Kirkcaldy.
I was born in. No
So,
longer
just to
exists.
I think of foreign players we had under Grant Murray.
Grant Murray era,
Yeah.
32 games, 2 goals. The logos of my last 5 clubs included a bull's head, a rooster, a gorilla, a star, and a lion. and the country I was born in no longer exists.
Like anybody who's... But then I suppose it could be somebody who was born, like, I don't know, like an army brat or something. Do you know what I mean? It could be... Unless it could be a loan signing, to be fair. 32 games. We've had Nadie before, haven't we? We have definitely done Nadie before, I'm sure we have. This is great radio, isn't it?
If they've not already, they're definitely away to listen to that 45-minute Dougie Imrie interview.
So I'm trying to think, Grant Murray was 2011, 2012 was his first season, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And then 13, 14.
Would you like a clue 5?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to.
Yeah, my knowledge of countries that no longer exist is fairly poor.
I was going to say, I feel like it's got to be. It's got to be African. I can't think of any countries that don't exist anymore. Unless it's like Yugoslavia or something.
I am a defender.
Goran Stanic is way too early.
So just, again, to recap. Grant Murray era. 32 games, 2 goals. The logos of the last 5 clubs include a bull's head, a rooster, a gorilla, a star, and a lion. The country they were
Why do I
born
feel
in
like we're missing something dead obvious?
no longer exists. And they are a defender.
I feel like you could have been onto something there with Stanic, to be honest. I can't remember what his era is, to be honest.
He was early, was he? No, he was pre-McGlynn.
There's someone from the same area, neck of the woods, that I'm thinking of, though, that I'm sure was around, but then I just can't. You're probably onto something there in terms of maybe someone born in former Yugoslavia in like the early 90s before it all went to shit.
Yeah.
Or late 80s, I suppose. But
this feels really, really niche. A defender in the Grant Murray era. So who played as a defender? So this is after Thierry Gattuso, because he was McGlynn. Defenders. It was Eddie Malone, he's definitely Scottish. Dougie Hill, definitely Scottish.
there's going to be someone who's got it and they're shouting at their whatever they're watching or listening to.
You want a final clue?
Oh, no. I think I know who it is, and I think I know exactly why he's picked it. So in the middle of the Dougie Imrie interview, it shot to an image of a young Dougie Imrie playing for Hamilton alongside Simon Mensing, who's an army brat, would have been born in Germany, but is probably old enough for it to have been either East or West Germany, as opposed to it being Germany. And he's played out. Has he not played out in India? Or he's definitely been abroad.
I've got a question for you, Blair. What's written on your hand? Because I've just I've seen that a few times, and
it says this is a wee insight into what's happening in my science classroom tomorrow. It says schmores. Because I'm making s'mores with my class.
You've answered that question, so I'll answer yours. You're absolutely correct. It's indeed
well done,
Simon Mensing, who featured 72 times for Hamilton Accies alongside Dougie Imrie. I didn't even clock the photo.
Did you not? I did, because as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, Simon Mensing, I forgot about him.
So, yeah, in terms of the clubs that he's played for, so the last 5 clubs, so Forfar have a bull's head in their logo.
Of course.
In terms of the rooster, that's actually Airdrie. So he was at Airdrie at the top of the logo. And then, you get into your America. So you've got a gorilla, which was, you've got the star, which was Carolina Railhawks. You've got Atlanta Silverbacks. And then before that, it was with Livingston. Grant Murray era siding. And of course, he was born in West Germany.
Is it West?
So, West Germany.
I was trying to rack my brain. I'm like, we never had it. I couldn't get Africa out of my head. It's just that thing of the only countries I could think of that kind of don't exist anymore are either that or, like, say, Yugoslavia.
So Simon Mensing. Just looking at it there, I couldn't put in that he was a defender too early because I'd given you the era question, and then if you're Grant Murray defenders, you're going through that back line, and I figured you would have got it pretty quickly, but no. That's our Should McStay or Should Dargo for this evening. Of course, we will be back with our post-match look at the game against Thistle. So hopefully continue on this positive run of post-match podcasts that we've been doing. But as ever, thanks for taking the time to listen, and we will catch you on the post-match podcast. But until then, bye for now.